When Gretchen and I started hanging out with the Kirk players many years ago, I remember auditioning for Dial M at the Cuneo. I was running a little bit late for the auditions, and so I raced in and I put my water down on the table and put down some papers and sat down in the circle that Patty was orchestrating. And Patty said, "Oh, could you take your water off that table?" And I said, "Sure." I took it off. She goes, "And the papers?" I'm like, "Wow, these guys are strict." So I took it off, but then I later realized it was actually one of the museum pieces that had come from the Hearst Castle and was like made in like 1600 and probably wasn't a place I should be putting my water or my papers. But anyways, it was my first audition. It went well. I thought it went well. Had a second audition, and as we're walking out the door, Patty puts her hand on my shoulder and she goes, "You know, stage manager's a really good job." So I kind of got the hint that maybe I wasn't going to be in that play, but I was going to be able to participate, which is the great thing about our shows, is that if you don't end up on stage, you can do something behind the scenes. And I was fortunate to have Sheila, our brilliant stage manager, who has mentored so many other stage managers. She had such a technique. She pulled together all the different components for a run book and all these different aspects to really ensure that the show goes well. So in less than 10 minutes, I'm going to give you a brief overview of both the stage manager and the assistant stage manager, and then Megan's going to talk a little bit about what the nuances are for a children's show. So according to AACT, it really is provide practical and organizational support to directors, actors, and crew throughout the production. What I consider the stage manager is really a cross between a project manager and a air traffic controller, because there's so many things going on. The director has their vision of how to bring the story to life through the actors. The director has the vision of how the different pieces fit together, but it's really the stage manager's job to sit with the director, see how all that's coming together, and identify potential areas where things aren't going to fit. For instance, if you've got the stage and rehearsal laid out, and it looks like things aren't going to be good for entrances or exits, or people are going to be blocked, those kinds of things, that's the kind of input you can provide. But it really is a partnership. It's really to be the right-hand person for the director. And I think all directors use their stage managers a little bit different, but really it's to make sure that we're a good liaison between all the different folks that come together to make this happen. And the assistant stage manager is really the right-hand person of the stage manager. So a lot of the things I'm going to talk about are things that typically a stage manager does, but the assistant stage manager could step in as well. There's really three main time periods when I think about a stage manager. One is for rehearsal, one is for tech week, and one is for the performances. So you don't need to read all this, but I wanted to at least have some of these bullet points up here, because there's a lot of things that go on for a stage manager. This isn't comprehensive, but this is a lot of the highlights. Number one, communicate, communicate, communicate. They may set up the initial schedule with the director, they may set up the call list, the conflicts and so forth, but as that changes, or if anything changes with the seat, with the stage or any of the components, their job is to make sure everybody is aware of those things. They also manage people who are, out and sick and so forth. But I think the main thing is really focusing on helping to track the blocking. Make sure that as the director is putting the show together, they're tracking all the blocking, all the stage direction. And, there's different philosophies, but I think we really settled on if the stage manager and the assistant stage manager are both keeping their own books with all the blocking, then if there's ever a question as far as what does the blocking look like, we have two different sources of truth that we can take a look at to say, yep, this makes sense. The stage manager takes notes on any tactical challenges they may see. When people are supposed to be off book, the stage manager and ASM will help to provide lines for the actors. They may determine at what point in time we need to start bringing props in, or costumes or sound. They coordinate the photo night along with the director who directs it. And then they're really the understudy for all roles. When I did Actor's Nightmare, I think Betty played almost every single role, except for maybe George, and she maybe even played George at one point too. So there's a lot of things that happen with rehearsal, but really the stage manager is designed to make sure the environment is successful from a preparation perspective. Then, of course, comes Tech Week. And in Tech Week, the stage manager who's been working with the tech director and all the different tech roles has kept track of all the different cues throughout the book. But now it's time to really lock it down, and throughout the entire script be able to say, okay, here's where the gunshot comes in, here's where the lights fade out, here's where the pedestal turns around, or whatever the different pieces are. And then their job through Tech Week and through Performance Week is really to call the show. So everybody's got headphones, they're talking to all their different crew folks. They determine if they're going to call every single shot or if they're going to have some visual cues that the sound or the lights can do, but they need to make sure they establish that ahead of time. We do something on Sunday night, which you're all familiar with, which is called Cue to Cue, and that's really where we isolate all the major changes. So the opening where we have the lights come up and we have the director say a few words, and we have the screen go up and all those things. We walk through that. We have the actors show up and come on stage for their very first scene, but they don't play the scene, obviously. They just make sure that we have that. And then the stage manager says, okay, the next thing that happens is we hear lightning. So they move ahead and set the stage with the actors on how that looks. We play the lightning. And this really, this exercise, if it's well orchestrated, can go pretty smooth, but it gives the actors a chance who are on the stage for the first time to feel what the different technical aspects will feel like. It gives the text folks a chance to see what things look like, and it gives us a chance to take notes on what's not working, what's working, those types of things. Stage manager and ASM check people in. They do, every single night they sit down with the tech team before anybody gets there to make sure that all the cues are working out. They make sure that they establish set runners. So if we have to move set pieces or make changes, they identify who those folks are and work out the logistics along with the set designer. They put together the costume show. They help to work and coordinate the photo shoot, and really just anything that the director needs. But the stage manager is taking more and more control. And by the time they get to the actual show, they actually own the show. They're responsible for taking a look at things like sight lines to make sure that we know if people from the audience can see behind stage and how to move those backdrops. They pull the curtain. They do all those fun things. You also want to set up something for the actors backstage since they're waiting in the wings. Let's set up some seats in some place where they can actually be comfortable. If there's quick costume changes, they work with the set designer to be able to say, hey, can we get a little curtain here and have something, someplace where people can change, or can we use the electrical room, those kinds of things. But it really is a lot of logistics to make sure that everything that's supposed to happen on stage happens when it's supposed to happen. The stage manager looks at props, lights, all those different things, and can run the show either from the side of the stage or the back of the stage. Like I did a show where we had to spin a platform that had a suit of armor on one side and had a bed on the other side. There's no way I could see it from the side of the stage. So I sat in the back with the headphones, and then I would just say spin, spin, just based on all the antics that were taking place on stage. The final stage is really the performances. And that's where the director fully hands the show over to the stage manager. Pretty much most of the things that happen during Tech Week happen during performance. It's just that we actually have a live crowd, and the stage manager says when the house is open. The stage manager or ASM helps the actors to count down. We're at 30 minutes, we're at 15 minutes, we're at 5 minutes before green room. And one of the biggest things the stage manager needs to do is anticipate any potential problems. Anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So how do we anticipate what that is? How do we troubleshoot? If something goes awry, all eyes are on the stage manager to say, what are we going to do to fix this? We're in the middle of a performance. So they really need to be on their toes, be aware of everything that's going on, have headsets that work. Barbara and I had fun when we were trying to do a curtain call and our headset didn't work. So that was exciting. And if all goes well, at the end, they celebrate a successful run. Now, I talked to a lot of different stage managers at Kirk to get some input for this presentation and what makes a really great stage manager. And so I was able to pull up a few suggestions here. So we'll let those paint up. But really, they're here to listen, anticipate, respond. There is no job that's beneath them. They are, the one thing that most people said is the stage manager needs to be organized. But the one thing that I think is most important is you need to keep the calm in the midst of all the insanity, because there's lots of tension when tech cues aren't working out or something's happening with the actors, and there's lots of finger pointing. And so really the stage manager is there to say, you know what, we're all in this together. Let's figure out how to make this successful. So that is my 10 minutes on stage management and assistant stage management.